Hello everyone. I'd like to talk about one of the blogs that I wrote, which you can read in A Touch of Peace. This one's called Embrace Your Fears. And Jyotish and I, had been visiting our community in Assisi, Italy. It's a beautiful international community based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. And of course, those of you who are familiar with Christian saints know that St. Francis, one of the greatest saints of all time, was from Assisi. And so St. Francis was very much on my mind, and we visited many of the beautiful shrines associated with his life in and around Assisi. But it reminded me of an incident that I had had some years earlier with regard to St. Francis in my own life. This happened in the early days of Ananda. And at that time, we were just beginning the community, and we didn't have many places to live. So we built teepees, like Native American teepees, and I was living in one. And it was actually quite lovely. You have the teepee poles going up in a circle, and they all converge at a point, and you drape a canvas skin around them. And on the top of my teepee poles, I tied little strips of cloth with little bells on the end. And when the wind blew, you could hear the little bells ringing in the wind. And one morning, I woke up and I'd finished meditating. I was reading a book about the life of St. Francis. It's quite an inspiring book called St. Francis by Nicholas Kazantzakis. And it had been raining the night before. And I wanted to see if it was still raining, so there are no doors in teepees, but I lifted up my little flap of my teepee entry, and I saw the words that came into my mind were, the mountains were blanketed with mist. And then I came back and I picked up my book. The first sentence I read was, the mountains were blanketed by mist. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. And then I heard the wind starting to pick up. The next sentence in the book was, St. Francis heard the wind moving through the trees. And I thought, that's weird. And then the little bells on the top of my teepee pole started to chime. And it said, I read the next sentence, and it said, in the distance, St. Francis heard the bells. And I thought, that's really weird. And then the next sentence was, it meant the approach of the lepers. And I just shut the book, and I thought, okay, I'm not ready for the lepers to come into my teepee. But that was the end of my story. But for St. Francis, he saw the lepers as they approached, and he had a revulsion of lepers, maybe more than most people. And he saw this man approach, and his face was all eaten away, and he had no nose, and there was pus streaming down his face. And St. Francis' first impulse was to run away, but then he said, no, this is a child of God. And he ran up to the leper, and he embraced him and kissed him on the cheeks. And in that moment, the leper turned into Jesus Christ, and he fell at his feet, and he just held on to his feet. He embraced his fears. The world we live in now is filled with things that produce anxiety and discouragement and fear. But Swami Kriyananda gave us a technique. He said, if you're afraid of something, imagine the worst case scenario that it could possibly be, and then say, could you live with that? And you think, I could deal with that. Then take it a step further. I could live with that. And then you realize there really isn't anything that would be something more than you could bear. And so whatever you are afraid of in life, what's causing anxiety, just look at it squarely, embrace it, as St. Francis did the leper, and realize that behind every fear, every anxiety, every frightful situation is God's presence, trying to help you expand your heart. And if you can live that way, you will walk, as Master said, the yogi should walk unshaken amidst the break of crashing worlds. God bless you.